All right, let's get to our power poll.
Okay.
Every week we rank the 12 FBS teams in the Lone Star State. These are power rankings, and they are the first 5 weeks have been relatively static. A couple little movements here and there.
This was a shifting week for a couple different reasons that I'm sure we'll get to.
Number 12, the Rice Owls. They took the week off. Boy, they need it. They are the only winless team in the state right now.
Yeah.
And they're, who do they draw on? I haven't even looked at their schedule yet.
I haven't, but Mike Craven in his 411 this morning, his bold prediction this week is Rice will win one Conference USA game.
Well, it may be this week against UTSA, although right now
it doesn't look like
we'll get to them in a moment.
Well, that'd be very UTSA to pull off a great win like that,
of course,
completely fall apart.
So number 12 is Rice. Number 11, the SMU Mustangs.
Now, this is I think these are right. However, SMU played a great game.
Here's the problem.
On the road.
Here's the problem: is that this is an 11 with an arrow pointing up.
Yeah.
Right. They go on the road to a decent Tulsa team.
It's definitely a disappointing Tulsa team based on preseason expectations, but that's a team that you probably don't expect SMU to beat.
Of course.
And they played really well.
They to double overtime?
Yeah.
Double overtime.
It might have been, double, because they kicked the field goal.
Yeah. Double overtime and end up losing. The encouraging thing for me is that we finally saw this offense start to hum with Ben Hicks.
They had some moments, for sure.
They definitely had moments where you go, okay, that is what the future looks like.
Right.
That's what next year is going to look like with Ben Hicks.
Yeah.
Look, they're not going to make a bowl. That fate was probably sealed when Matt Davis went down.
Right.
But there are signs of life for this SMU team. And that's all. And as an SMU fan, isn't that all you want to see?
I think so. And I really feel I know it's a loss. It's tough to deal with the way it ended. But it really was the best step forward I think we've seen this year from them.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think that this is arguably their best result of the year, which is weird to say because it was a loss. But to go on the road and battle like that, I was really impressed with.
Yeah.
Number 10, UTEP. Oh, they lose to Florida International at home.
I don't know. I mean, I might put SMU ahead of them.
I might too, honestly.
Yeah. Now that we're looking at this,
that's just. I mean, come on, dude. This is
not great. Not great.
I don't get it. I don't get it. This is not a good Florida International team.
No.
And you're at home.
Yeah, at home.
This is.
To be fair, no home field advantage. There were like 4 people there.
Yeah.
We saw a picture before the game, and there was
nobody
nobody
up
in
about El
the
Paso?
house. Yeah. Apparently, I will say in their defense, but again, not in their defense. It goes both ways, right? Aaron Jones is dealing with something.
He may be a little bit banged up.
We don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. Well, we might know now, but at the time the game happened, it wasn't really clear. He wasn't getting the carries he normally does. Now, on one hand, if he plays Aaron Jones level, does that game end a different way? Perhaps. But then we go back to the thing last year. You have no plan B, which isn't great either.
It's just really disappointing because last year you had a built-in excuse. You could go, we're hurt. We're banged up all across the field. Our most important player, Aaron Jones, is hurt. This year you don't have that excuse.
Right. And even if you did, you had a year to understand you can't have that excuse.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, like if insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, then this is insane. Right. Because you've got to have a secondary threat, and right now they just don't. Yeah. Not to mention the defense shouldn't be giving up 35 points to Florida International.
Right.
But whatever. I'm really bummed about UTEP. Yeah. I'm really bummed. Number 9, Texas State. So maybe Vegas knew what they were talking about.
Maybe.
Remember, Texas State was a very odd 10-point dog.
Right.
On the road, admittedly, but at winless Georgia State.
Right.
But in the end, Vegas knew what they were talking about.
Vegas, it turns out, if you look back at our picks, your picks against the spread, Vegas knew a lot of things that we did not know.
Yeah, they sure did. They always do, man. They started off 14-0, and that's what's so good is that they started off, but then it just all fell apart.
Yeah. And
the defense just ugly. 500 yards of total offense allowed, and that's concerning because now, admittedly, the Texas State team that our thoughts from the beginning have been they just don't have the horses to run this year.
Right.
You got to give Everett Withers time to cook.
Yeah.
Let Everett Withers cook.
Yeah.
But this is just disappointing because I don't think Georgia State's very good.
Yeah.
And to go on the road and to start off so hot and then lay an egg is really disappointing to me. So that is they come in at number 9. Number 8. Do you believe in the Mean Green?
They're playing well.
Woo! Man. Speaking of new coaches, how about North Texas?
This is a nice one.
38-21 over Marshall, and I got to tell you, go back and watch. I don't remember who had it. Where is I don't know who had the game sealing interception return for a touchdown. I don't remember who it has.
Oh, I didn't see it.
But you want to see the difference between UTEP and North Texas. That dude, whoever, I want to find it because he deserved. It was a great play.
It's okay, we got time.
It was a great play. I want to see this. But he, come on now, where are you? Okay, the game sealing interception return for a touchdown. It was, first of all, they're 3-3. Did you know that?
Yeah, man.
They're 3.
Mean Green are coming.
They are 3 and ding dong 3. Pretty remarkable stuff.
With a true freshman quarterback who is
31. So they kick a field goal with like 4:26 left.
Right.
And to go up 31-21, you're thinking, okay, they got this. But then Marshall gets the ball, and you're thinking, oh man, what if they just come and break their heart?
Mean Green fans are conditioned.
They're conditioned.
They're ready for the heartbreak to come.
And then Eric Jenkins, 52-yard interception return for a touchdown. And let me tell you, Apogee Stadium lifted off.
Yeah.
That place went berserk. Yeah. And it was super cool to see, and that's awesome. Now, there's a bad news here is that Jeffrey Wilson, who had such a great game, ended up leaving with an injury. In the fourth quarter. We'll see how that – I haven't heard anything else about that. Hopefully it's just something like that. But, boy, howdy, what a game. For North Texas. Yeah. They shoot up our rankings. They are now at number 8. Number 7, UTSA.
The Roadrunners, baby.
Weird football at the Alamo Dome. But the thing is, that's what I mentioned, is that, it's weird football because they won. But at the same time, dude, UTSA was just flat out better. This was not a fluke.
They came out punching, man.
This is not a 23-point fluky win, okay?
No.
They came out and throttled them. The offense looked fantastic, but the defense made the big plays. They forced 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter to end any sort of comeback bid. And Jalen Rhodes went for 165 and 3 touchdowns. Jarvion Williams. This was what we wanted to see. Yeah. We wanted to see this running game get going, it did.
It wasn't the greatest. It wasn't the greatest weekend for the top half of the power poll. But man,
let me tell you, North Texas and UTSA made up for a lot.
Yeah,
and even SMU, if you want to lump them in with that.
Yeah, for sure. It was a nice weekend for the smaller schools.
Okay,
here we go. Here goes the ugliness.
Number 6, Texas.
Ugh. Well,
so let me get this straight. Charlie Strong demotes his defensive coordinator, who by the way, I went on Twitter and I said, so he demotes Vance
Bedford.
I know, but I said Vance Wilson. Who's, I believe, the head coach at Frisco High.
Nice.
Which just tells you where my brain is at on Friday mornings or Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
But so he demotes Vance Bedford and says, okay, I'm going to call the defensive plays. Yeah. And they give up 672 yards of total offense.
Not great.
And, I mean,
you're not going to turn it around in a week.
You're not, and I understand that. But at the same time, at some point, all these
and that's with a first half where they had 3 turnovers. They forced 3 turnovers. We're all like, oh hey, maybe this is the difference.
And high profile in a high profile game.
Yeah.
And you've got all these stud recruits. Mm-hmm. Why can't they play defense? Like at some point, it comes back to scheme, right? It comes back to coaches not putting players in a position to succeed.
I mean, but we've seen this with all of these teams who are built around quick offenses, right? I mean, like TCU brings in Cumbie and Meacham. Defense has gotten worse every year. Texas Tech I don't know. They can't stop anything. We're about to get to them.
We'll get to them.
Baylor has improved, but still by far not a good defense. And, A&M had to go and get the best defensive coordinator in the SEC to improve on their side.
In the nation. But go on.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I think we're both in agreement there. But the point is just, for whatever reason, these teams that switch to the Baylor or the air raid style offenses, their defenses immediately fall off. And I think it's twofold. Number one, you're going up against it every day in practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's its own thing. Number two, I mean, you got to have like 3 guys deep.
Mm-hmm.
It's exhausting for these guys. In the fourth quarter, the second half and the fourth quarter, they all fade.
Mm-hmm.
If you just watch all these games, it's the exact same. They need to make a stop down the stretch, and they can't. They're gassed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they don't have any rest. They're playing
Boy,
twice as much as they normally would.
And this was a game, what's so frustrating, what I imagine has got to be so frustrating for Texas fans, is this was a game Oklahoma desperately wanted to give away. Desperately. Desperately. They were like, please win this game, Texas. Please. And they wouldn't. That's really just disappointing. Number 5, Texas Tech. Speaking of disappointing, this is what happens when the offense doesn't light it up, right? They go on the road and they play at Kansas State, and the offense only puts up 38 points, which is kind of silly, right? Yeah. Pat Mahomes was back on the field.
His arm 500 faded.
504 yards and 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns on the ground. He looked like he was not 100%.
He came out and looked fine, and I think Adam Bodecker wrote about it. It looked like in the second half, just like his arm was tired. Which, again, if you sprain your AC joint, I would expect you to be fatigued a lot to especially on 1 week's rest. So, just didn't have the juice.
No, and
defense can't stop a
bad
anybody.
Offense. Yeah, so I mean that's the concern here is that Texas Tech's got a bold strategy to just outgun everybody, which is fun. But if you come out and your offense is only 75%, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem.
Right.
So there's Texas Tech comes in at number 5. Number 4, TCU.
By default, right? Pretty much.
Here's the good news.
Yeah.
They won.
Right.
Here's the bad news.
Barely.
They barely won at Kansas, who hasn't won a conference game since 2014.
Yeah.
I watched this game stem to stern.
You're talking about teams that want to give a game away. TCU did everything they could.
Kenny Hill coughed the ball up 7 times.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised we didn't see Sawyer for like a series.
Dude, Kenny Hill looked like he had never seen a football before.
Yeah, it was rough.
He was just it was fumbles and there are some interceptions where you go, wow, that's a great play by the defense.
Right. And then
there was one that was a great play. The other ones were horrifying.
Not great. Yeah.
Now, football is not a game of inches; it's a game of degrees. And when the pressure got turned up in the fourth quarter, they came up with the big stop, or they came up with the big drive, and they ended up coming up with a good enough stop. Although they gave up a freaking like 4th and 19 or something to extend a drive
on hook and ladder.
It
was a great play.
I know it was, but it's like,
but it shouldn't come to that.
It shouldn't come to that. This is a team. All I ask of good football teams is to just
beat the teams they should
stomp the throat of teams that they're better than, and TCU just didn't do that. And I imagine Gary Patterson. I imagine Gary Patterson's not going to be a happy camper this week in practice. Number 3, Baylor. They took the week off. They prepare to play. Who do they play this week? Let's see. They got. They play Kansas at home though. So hey, here's a perfect example. Baylor, you want to prove you're better than TCU right out of the gate? Yeah. Just stomp Kansas. Yeah, just stomp them.
I feel like they probably will.
They probably will, but we'll see. So there's that. Number 2, the Houston Cougars. I want to be kind to the Houston Cougars because I do think that Navy's not a bad team.
They're a good team.
They're a good team, and they were on the road.
Yep, in the rain.
Terrible
conditions.
But this is what happens when you just fart around for 3 quarters. And they just had
you make mistakes. That's a lot of turnovers.
They had no answer for play action. And Navy threw the ball 5 times. They completed 3 of them, and 2 of them were for just straight-up walk-in touchdowns.
It's weird because they didn't have these. We talked about this last week. They didn't have this issue with Navy last year.
No.
I don't understand it.
And
maybe, honestly, without the turnovers, they don't in this one.
Oh, and that's
right?
I wrote about that.
2-3 score game.
I wrote about that in on TexasFootball.com. If you go look at the 2 games they've lost under Tom Herman, they are -7 in the turnover margin. Yeah. They have turned the ball over 0. They have forced 0 turnovers in their 2 losses. They are they're a team that is very reliant on ball security
Right.
and taking advantage of other teams' lack thereof.
It's a numbers game.
It's a
right?
numbers game.
Yeah, more possessions, you're going to score
That's
more.
exactly right.
Yeah.
But even they are. Go back to Houston last year.
Yeah.
What made that Houston defense so great? It's not that they stopped you every time. It's not that they didn't give up any points.
Right.
They took it away from you.
Right.
They had the big play.
They do high risk, high leverage stuff, and it ends up working most of the time.
Go look at- go look-
2-3 drives, they get the ball back, or they make stops, and the offense outpaces the other team.
What was the difference in that Cincinnati game?
Same thing.
Turnovers.
Right, yeah,
They
turnovers.
forced turnovers down the stretch, and that's what made that game a blowout. Those turnovers never came, and they just played sloppy, plain and simple. And the new number one team in our power poll, it's got to be, right?
Undisputed.
The Texas A&M Aggies. Look, if you want to be a negative Nancy and you want to say that Tennessee turned the ball over 18 million times,
7, but not.
turned the ball over 7 times, and you still needed double overtime to beat them, there is a viable argument for that.
It's not great.
But I
lean more towards Craven. A win is a win in the SEC.
A win is a win in the SEC. They are now, in my opinion, they're not the best team in the SEC. And anybody who thinks they're the best team in the SEC is fooling themselves.
Yeah.
Alabama is the best team in the SEC.
But all they got to do is win one.
All they got to do is win once.
They just got to find. They got 2 weeks to get ready.
You want to hear something crazy? You know who I'm coming around on?
Who?
Trevor Knight. Starting. That was impressive.
You know, he was
not always great. But that
no.
was the first time that I watched Trevor Knight and I go, you know what?
But I think Mazzoni has figured out, and not that everyone didn't know it already, but in key situations, make him make plays with his legs.
Yeah, let him.
Man, can he run?
Mm-hmm.
He's big, strong, and fast.
I think you're exactly right. That was really impressive. That was in my opinion the best game he's played as an Aggie.
Yeah, I think they're figuring it out. They get better. But yeah, I mean, look, if you want your red flag to be like, hey, they're not there yet, it's the 7 turnovers and still having to take that thing to overtime.
And now it's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks to Tuscaloosa.
But that's what you want, right?
It's 2
Undefeated.
weeks to Tuscaloosa.
2 weeks to get ready for Bama.
Mm-hmm.
A Bama team that only have 1 week to get ready for you. So
So
make it
there's
count.
yeah,
This will be
exactly
fun.
right. So it'll be a lot of fun.